Tique, welcome to the Visionary Life podcast. I was just mentioning to you before we started recording that I am a huge podcast fan myself, and I subscribe to the Shopify Masters podcast, and it popped up on my list and I listened to it immediately. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to know more about this company. What is Chandler Honey? So, started following you guys on Instagram. I listened to the whole episode. And anyways, there's just such an amazing story here. You are full of passion and excitement as an entrepreneur. And so very honored to be able to sit down with you today and bring this story to our visionary community. So thank you for being here.
Oh, so excited to be here. Thanks, Kelsey. And that was my first big podcast that I've been on. So I was a little nervous about how it was going to turn out. It was recorded way ahead of time, so I kind of forgotten what I said, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it went. Doing podcasts is super fun, just sharing my story, and happy to do more.
It's so cool too, because more and more, and I'm sure you've heard this a million times, people want to know the story and the founder behind the brand. So although your product is amazing, I think they love that added element of maybe hearing you on a podcast or seeing you on Instagram and feeling that deeper connection.
Totally.
And just knowing who the producer is and who is behind these amazing jars.
Brands that I admire all have like a personal story attached with them, or like you feel connected to the founder in some way. And so even when I was picking the name for Chandler Honey, I wanted to pick my last name for that exact reason, because I kind of have a family story with beekeeping. I'm sure we'll get into. I want people to trust where the product is coming from, but also like see my face, recognize my voice from podcasts, and feel a connection to me and a connection with the product. And I think that all just kind of ties in together. So yeah, very happy to be like a personality behind my brand. It's super fun.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, to skip ahead a little bit and then we'll go back to your origin story. Yeah. Did it feel natural for you to be the spokesperson and to share the behind the scenes? Or was that more of a strategic operational decision that you're like, okay, I got to get out of my shell and bring this product to life with me as the personality?
I think it was pretty natural. Like, in my personal life, don't have a huge Instagram following or anything, but I love to hop on stories and just like talk to the camera. And so that's something that's always come very naturally to me. Maybe it's narcissism. I don't really know. Love to hear myself talk, but like that kind of conversationality comes very naturally to me, and I have no problem being on camera. So yeah, it was not a big like scary leap for me to continue being like bringing my personality to this brand. I definitely had to kind of think about what kind of professional polish can I put on this? Like how much do I let people in? But so far, like there hasn't been many times where I've been like, oh, that's too personal or whatever. Like I'm happy to let people in, and people are so wonderful. So yeah, no complaints there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, thinking about the brands that I feel most connected with, they are ones that bring me to the high highs of their journey, but also aren't afraid to be honest. And that doesn't mean like necessarily crying on camera all the time when you get rejected from a retailer or when something bad happens, but letting people know that like, hey, we're humans too. Like this is the struggle or this is the challenge that we're currently trying to problem solve for. So I think it is really cool to bring people along for the ride.
Or even to spin, negative things that happen, to let people know what's going on, but also spin it as like learning lessons. Because if like as entrepreneurs, we're not learning all the time, like we're quickly going to be phased out. So like even just sharing any insights that I am learning about my business or learning about myself and kind of bringing that to people, I mean, that's wonderful. So I have no problem doing that.
So let's take it back a little bit. So you grew up on your parents' farm in Alberta, and that farm has been operating for a long time, I think since 1937. Mm-hmm. And your parents were entrepreneurs. So
yes,
as a child, were you like running around the farm going, I'm going to start my own business one day too? Or what was your childhood like and what led you into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I always really respected my parents as entrepreneurs. We lived right beside the like bee farm as well. It was like 50 steps away or something like that. So I could see in my parents' life, there was really no distinction between their work life and their personal life. And as scary as that might be for some, but I actually found it really inspiring. Like they were able to be flexible whenever they needed to be. If things were like important at the house or like family obligations are coming up, they can like step back from work a little or have people take on more work. But if they needed to be at work, they can do that too, or quickly. And yeah, just like having really no blurred lines between life and work. I kind of was gravitated towards that. I think a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs feel that they can handle work and life being the same thing. And I think for me right now, that is what it is. It's all just work and life. There is no work-life balance. So yeah, I was always really like intrigued by that lifestyle, especially to have a mom who can come to all my sports games and stuff because she doesn't have a traditional 9 to 5. It was like really awesome as a kid. So yeah, I kind of went about my career path not knowing that I wanted to get into honey or beekeeping or anything in particular like that, but I knew I wanted to have my own business. So that's kind of, even as a teenager, that's kind of how I structured my life. I was like trying to decide what to go into in university. And I was like, okay, well, I should probably go into a business program. I don't know what my business will be, but like, let's give this a shot. And then after, so I studied HR in university, which is kind of random, but I just like wanted those people skills. I knew that that would be, do me very good as a future entrepreneur, and just a nice skill to have as a backup as well if I needed to have a corporate job. And then after I graduated, I went into tech sales again, because I knew I wanted to focus on those people skills. I knew that sales skills are like some of the most important skills as an entrepreneur. So yeah, just practicing all that. And then it was kind of like in my mid-20s, I was pretty unhappy in my tech job. I just decided it was time. And I didn't have this idea. It wasn't like an aha moment or anything like that. I just knew it was time for me to do something else. So I kind of made a list of a bunch of business ideas. Lots were very infeasible. Like, I don't know how I would be a property manager. Like, that doesn't really make, anyway, whatever. The idea that did make sense was taking something that my parents do, something that I have knowledge and history on and have access to a lot of honey as well, and then put a little twist on it, make it my own. So I'm really proud of it, but also just like my parents don't do any branding of their honey. They just sell it in big drums. And I just wanted to like take an arm of their business and then put my own little twist on it. So that's how I came to Chandler Honey.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that I want to double tap on there is that there was no aha moment. I think a lot of people in their 20s, 30s who are unhappy in their corporate job, they're kind of like waiting for that aha. And it's like, when is it going to hit me? When is it going to hit me? But sometimes you have to do what you did, which is just make the list and be like, what is most reasonable? What is something I can start on right away based on the resources that I have in front of me, right? Yeah. Rather than maybe going to a place far, far away, being like, I want to launch a resort in Mexico. It's like, well, you have no previous skills or experience.
Exactly.
But sometimes it's the things that are like right in front of us, I want to say, that we forget about, that we need to come back to and be like, what was that thing I loved as a child? Or what do I already incorporate into my daily routine that is maybe not normal to other people? So it's asking yourself some very fundamental questions and then saying, well, what can I do to get this started right away?
Totally. And not waiting for that aha moment that just comes out of nowhere. Like, it can be a deliberate process and you can deliberately choose where you're going to go. It doesn't have to be a strike of inspiration. And I think oftentimes like the obvious answer for your business is sometimes the right answer. Like, it made sense for me to have a branch of my parent, like an extension of my parents' business. That just is an obvious solution, but it's probably the right one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then you get this idea. You're like, well, I can have an extension of my parents' brand. I can launch my own infused honey company.
Yeah.
What do you do from there? Because I'm sure there are a lot of listeners who have the idea for the product, but they're paralyzed. They don't even know what the first or second or third step. And I'd love to know from your experience, what did you do when you decided, okay, it's going to be infused honey?
Yeah, it is super overwhelming at the beginning. You start to run away with, oh no, I need like food certifications, I need a space, and I need jar, like all these things. But you have to take it step at a time. That's every business has started from zero. Every founder has Googled a million things of like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And you just have to take it one step at a time. So for me, this was in the heart of COVID. I just wanted to create my product first and create a really simple minimum viable product. So I kind of know the rules of honey, what you're allowed to put in it so that it doesn't spoil, all of these things. And then I just started creating flavors from scratch. I knew that infused honeys existed on the market, but I didn't want to do too much market research into their flavors beforehand because I wanted to go at it totally blind, create my own recipes, and then later do market research, see if I'm overlapping too much on all these things. Anyway, so I created 30 different flavors at first. I just like went to spice stores and got a bunch of spices and came up with different ideas of flavors. And I created 30 to begin with. And I just made all of my family and friends, anyone who I was in contact, it wasn't that many people because it was COVID, just taste as many as they could and rank them. And kind of consistently the top, like 7 of them were being placed in the top 5. And then from there, I did market research and said, okay, these 5 seem unique and are super delicious and people seem to really like them. This is a good product mix. So there I had my MVP. Mm-hmm. I didn't worry at that point about having super beautiful jars or super beautiful labels. I just wanted to test if this product was something worth pursuing. Like you can get really caught up in all the branding and all the sexy stuff, but your product-based business, your product has to be good before you can do anything else. So I bought just like 50 pretty ugly jars from a store. I created my own labels at the beginning and just like, I literally was cutting them up with scissors and putting them on the jars. And I just went to some local stores in my local towns being like, hey, do you want to stock this? And from some miracle, because we did samples right at the store, they wanted to stock them. And that, like, these jars are so ugly. I'll send you some pictures. Maybe you can put them on screen. They're almost a joke at this stage, but because the product tasted so good, people were willing to take a shot on me. So that was my MVP, that I was like, okay, this is something special. Like if I invest in branding, I get a logo, I get a beautiful website, beautiful product photography. I think this is something that people are going to love because the product I know is great.
So you're saying once you had your first product, you walked into stores with a sample and said, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I've built or created. Would you like to try it? Like, did it actually go like that?
Terrifying. So terrifying.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, so I was living at my parents' farm for the beginning part of COVID. So this was all there. And I had not been living there for already 10 years at this point. So it's not like I knew these shop owners. Like they had kind of heard of my parents in the community. One was in Brooks and one was in Lethbridge. Like the people in Lethbridge had no idea who I was. So yeah, it was literally going up, asking to talk to the manager, coming back if the manager wasn't there, doing samples right there and asking them to take a chance on me. And I knew so little about everything that I didn't even have barcodes on the product. They just like, okay, this can work. One store owner told me this size is way too big. Like we only want the smaller sizes, but we need barcodes. So come back next week, bring us a case. We'll give it a try, bring us barcodes. So yeah, then I'm, again, just one step at a time. Now I'm Googling how to get barcodes and what that takes. And yeah, just one step at a time.
I love it. And it probably only took 1 or 2 people saying yes to you for you to feel like you had that motivation and that momentum to look towards the next step. And I think people, you could sit behind a computer screen and build out this elaborate business plan and be like, here's how I'm going to get my products into Whole Foods all across North America. When that's just like so far down the path, that it's like, whoa,
terrifying.
Reel it back in. Have you even gone into one mom and pop health food shop and asked them if you can sample it there or if they could stock it, right? Yeah. It's like, let's go back to basics here. And I love that, trial for you was obviously an obvious way to get people on board with your vision. Like, try this product. It's going to taste different than anything you've ever had before. And I'm assuming that's what won some of your first customers.
Totally.
Some of your first retailers over.
And so one said yes and bought whatever, a couple cases and paid me up front. But one was like, listen, I'll do this on commission. And I was like, yep, great. Let's give it a try. So you just got to get those first yeses in whatever way you can. And then I knew, I think the product is great and has like a compelling family story behind it. So I knew that getting like a proper e-commerce website, I could convince people that this is like a product that they want to try, even though it's in the heart of COVID and they can't do sampling or anything. So because of COVID challenges, I knew that I had to invest more money than maybe a brand would now in product photography, just because people can't try it. They have to eat with their eyes. So that was a
Okay. So
decision I made early on.
yeah, let's double tap on that chapter. So
Yeah.
you decide to go mostly the e-com route. So you built up a website, invested in product photography
Yeah.
because you weren't necessarily sampling it in a lot of health food shops at the time. Nobody was doing sampling programs. So how were people finding out about Chandler Honey during your first 6 to 12 months of business? Like, how did people even get to the website or know that you had created all these awesome flavors and then end up shopping? Like, take us through kind of that early days of your online marketing journey.
Yeah, my first week, I would say it was mostly just friends and family, which makes a ton of sense. Like, I'm sharing this on my personal Instagram, my Facebook, and people are like going to my website that way. It was luckily also November 9th. So that's it's honey season, first of all. It's also gift giving season. So like it was just a lucky time of the year to be launching, but my launch went exceptionally well. But then I asked my friends all to share it on their Instagram stories too, or their Facebooks. It's funny how Instagram gets more, or even 2 years ago, things are changing now, but Instagram had more eyes, but Facebook has like, I don't know if it's older people or what, but the people with money are on Facebook. So
Definitely.
the grandmas, they love the honey. So yeah, Facebook has been surprisingly powerful, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So yeah, just getting my network to share, and people, because the photography was so beautiful, people really shared the website and shared the products. And so yeah, then I started getting orders from people I've never even heard of, and it was all just like word of mouth online. It was actually incredible. So even on my very first day, I remember I had someone who I'd never heard of, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. Yeah.
And so often we discount our friends and family. Like, we're like, I don't want to promote it to them because, you know, they know me in this certain chapter of my life, but now I have something to sell and I don't want to bother them. But it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. These are going to be your first 100 customers.
Totally.
So do not hesitate to share with them what you're up to. In fact, most of them are going to be so proud and they want to be included in the vision. And like you said, a lot of them will end up sharing it out to their network. So this is how you grow past your initial kind of community, the people who already know you. So it's so vital to leverage your friends and family and use that because they want to support you.
Absolutely. I still think you need like a compelling product and compelling story and all that. You can't just take your friends and family for granted that they will share. They want to be excited about it too. But yeah, people are so surprisingly kind always and so supportive. And then they leave reviews and then you share those reviews. And like it just kind of goes from there. And then early days as well, like we couldn't do any markets inside. So it was like freezing in Toronto and I'm outside doing markets and making people sample. And that was really great. And just like, you know, asking everyone to follow me on Instagram. And yeah, no, people are like really supportive of small businesses. It has been my experience, even more so during like the lockdown stage of COVID. But yeah, people are so wonderful and supportive, and you just got to get in front of them.
You mentioned something about having a compelling story.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because you obviously have the story of your parents starting their farm, and then you have the story of you with the desire to become an entrepreneur, but kind of uncertain. So how have you crafted the story of Chandler Honey? And when you tell it today, what are some of those key parts that you love to share as the origin story of the brand and of the business?
It's the fact that I was beekeeping from such a young age and do know my way around a beehive, no problem. Oh, my air conditioning just came on in October. I don't know why. Doesn't seem right. I think that that's quite rare. To have a family business with such a long history is also quite rare. But what I really tried to capitalize on, because I knew it was different, is you very rarely see female faces in beekeeping, but you also very rarely see young female faces in beekeeping. So I knew I had that to my advantage, which is why I share my face so often on my website, on my Instagram, and also leverage tools like TikTok, which isn't going great, and Instagram and trying to, like, there's no other beekeepers who are usually old white dudes. They're not going to be using these tools, and I can stand out in this way. So I knew that just looking at the competition.
I love that. Yeah. And you say too, like there was nobody else really who
Hmm.
you saw in your industry that maybe resembled you or your
Yeah.
story. And I think that that's a moment to kind of have like a epiphany of, well, why not me? Why can't I blaze a trail and start, being the face of this brand and maybe surprising people that they
Hmm.
wouldn't think that I would be the founder of a
Totally.
honey company.
Yeah.
So,
And
um,
what is such a shame is that I live in downtown Toronto. I want my own hive so badly, not only because I enjoy it, but because I want to like show people what that's like in the process behind that.
yes.
I don't have the room for it now, but I'm in a commercial building now, and I would love to like I will talk to the building manager and be like, hey, can I get a beehive up on the roof? Like, how does that sound? Because I think that would be really cool.
I think that'd be so awesome too. You mentioned that TikTok not going so well. That's a hot topic on the podcast these days because everybody is trying to explore like, am I going to become the next viral sensation
Yeah.
if I invest money and time and energy into this platform, even though a lot of people are just very resistant to
Hmm.
TikTok itself? Tell us about your experience of growing the brand on that platform
Yeah.
specifically.
If I was doing it all over again, I would have started 2 years ago, but that is just
Yeah,
easy to
hindsight is
say in
2020.
hindsight. I know. And so like I have a decent following on Instagram, like 4,300, like a very engaged community. I'm very happy with that.
Yep.
But recently on Instagram, I'm noticing less and less engagement. I think that that's
Yeah.
kind of a trend with everybody. So I'm
Yep.
frustrated there. And so I'm like, okay, TikTok, I can do this.
Yep.
And I'm creating content that I think would perform well on Instagram, or videos that I think are semi entertaining or interesting. And yeah, just not a lot of catch on right now.
Yep.
And it's frustrating because I even brands that I love and respect so much, like even Lake and Oak Teas, is a friend of mine, and they have an awesome Instagram presence, and they make beautiful videos for their reels that do really well. They have
Yeah.
the same content on TikTok, and it hasn't caught on, and they post consistently, and it's
Yep.
beautiful. I just don't get TikTok quite yet, but I need to find a way, I think, to like tell a more compelling story, because me as a TikTok consumer, I don't want to follow brands necessarily. So I
Yeah.
need to find a way to make my brand not salesy and not just pushy. It needs to be interesting and engaging beyond what I'm selling, which I
Mhm.
think is different than Instagram. So I think there's a lot of potential in TikTok, obviously. I just don't quite know how to get there yet. But hopefully in the next couple months, we'll be able to figure something out.
What's your philosophy when it comes to the marketing plan of Chandler Honey? Like, are
Yeah.
you open to experimentation and always exploring, or do you have something that's very neatly written out that's like, we post 5 times a week on these themes and we do not deviate? How do you approach your marketing department as a whole?
I am the marketing department.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is very freewheeling. Like I probably post 4 or 5 times on Instagram a week,
Yep.
and push to Facebook from there. It's when I feel like sharing stuff or feel like I have
Yep.
something interesting to share, or even just like old product photos that I think like haven't been seen in a while. Like
Yeah.
let's show those again. So yeah, not a huge strategy in terms of like we need X this content and this much content, and but I do try to show my face every like fourth post or something like that. Have a lot of beautiful product images so that if people are finding my page for the first time, they're like, oh, this is what this is about. Um, yeah, it is just kind of whatever I feel like.
Hmm.
As I get to become a bigger company, I'm sure a plan will fall into place, but this has been working so far. And then I hop on
Yeah.
stories pretty often as well.
Well, and I love that. And I think that it's important to demystify the early journey of a founder because sometimes we think like, oh, they must have like this elaborate document and they're just following it to a T. But
Mm,
a lot of us, we're going with the flow. We're riding, our waves of inspiration and sharing stories as they're happening in our lives.
mm-hmm,
And this can't necessarily be planned. It's more of an on the fly. And it's not a bad thing, right? To show up when you're actually in an inspired
mm-hmm.
state
Yeah,
versus to pre-plan everything and maybe have
totally.
nothing kind of hit home because it was all pre-recorded or batch created when you
Mm-hmm.
weren't really feeling all that lit up. So
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
agree with
nice to
that.
get some behind the scenes on that.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of what's working now, obviously we kind of have come out of COVID, maybe we're back to more in-person stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of continuing to find people to sample Chandler Honey to, getting online orders, getting into retailers, just as an overall kind of summary, what do you feel is working well in growing brand awareness?
Yeah, I think the next step in my business is to definitely get onto more shelves. So I treat my job mostly as a sales job. I'm sending about 10 cold emails or cold calls a day just to store
Nice.
owners. It's a lot of work, but
Yeah.
it does hit pretty often, or I go randomly still show up and just talk to managers is pretty effective. But I just actually partnered with some sales brokers. Fingers crossed that this works out. This is a new strategy for me, just kind of my outsourced sales team. And that will hopefully allow me to get into places like Whole Foods and Organic Garage and all these things. So yeah, that's kind of in progress now. There's like a ramp up period, obviously. So that's what's next for me. But yeah, just like the word of mouth in whatever sense, even if it's farmers markets that I've done or just on Instagram or reviews, whatever, keep bringing new people to me, which is amazing. And I'm also doing one of a kind show this year, I think, which will be awesome, to get in front of lots of new faces, but also hopefully a lot of store owners as well, to stock me. So that's the hope. Yeah,
Absolutely.
just dabbling in a lot of different things. But yeah, e-commerce is probably even now about a third of my business. A lot of it is directly to stores or directly to distributors. I'd love to keep that ratio where it is. A third e-commerce, a third wholesale, and a third distributors, but I just love to bump everything up. That's kind of growth
How do
trajectories.
you manage your time in a day? Do you have any schedule that you follow Monday to Friday? Because obviously you are wearing all the hats or doing
Mm-hmm.
most of the things. So, what does a typical work week look like? And how do you find time to send cold emails, be on social media, show up at trade shows,
Yeah.
do quality control? Like it's
Oh my gosh,
everything, right?
it's
So,
never ending.
yeah.
And I have a part-time person to help me with production now, which has been amazing. But I still pack all of my own orders and write little notes in them. I still do deliveries myself. It's a lot, but I try to be in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday doing production type stuff. So whether that's literally helping pour jars and labels, but also get orders out the door, just actual product stuff. And then I usually am at home on Tuesdays and Thursdays to just do email and admin stuff. Even when I'm at the office, I'll still try to do my sales emails and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, every day is very different depending on what I've got going on. It's very unstructured, I would say, but it's just whatever needs to get done.
Yeah, whatever is priority of the day.
Totally.
And I love, you have a quote, I forget if it was on your Instagram or on another blog, but it said, if the bees have taught us anything, it's that there are no shortcuts in making something delicious. And that I feel like is very resonant of an entrepreneur's journey within the first few years. Like there are no shortcuts to success. Like you are going to be the one packaging the orders, getting out there into meetings, doing the social media. And for anyone who thinks that it's like a wave a magic wand and this entrepreneurial journey is just so easy, it's like, no, like you gotta go through it, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of days feel like a grind, but we wake up the next day and work on the next most important thing, and the day after and the day after. And like you've alluded to, this is a lifestyle. It's not like I end my job at 4:30 p.m. and then I just go on with my life. It's like you're always probably thinking about your business, but in a way, I'm sure that's okay with you, right?
Yes. Because also if I want to like go have lunch with a friend in the middle of the day, I can totally do that. I don't need to ask anybody's permission to do that. And so I'm very blessed and grateful in that way. But yeah, it really does never end.
So I'm curious if we could fast forward 5 or 10 years and we saw that Chandler Honey is 100 times the size that it is today. I'm curious, what is your best guess as to why you have achieved that level of growth and impact?
Yeah, I think in order for that to happen, I would need to expand into the States, which would be a dream come true. Anyway, so that
Wow.
logistically, I think that's the how.
Yeah, that's a big vision, but exciting
Yeah,
too.
no, yeah, I see that happening eventually. As far as like what traits of mine have allowed me to reach that, geez, I think it comes back to having a truly excellent product that I stand by 100%. And that I'm so confident that if I bring it into any store or send samples to, like, people will try it and they will love it. That's huge and can't be underestimated at any turn. You can have beautiful marketing, you can have all the tricks, but if your product has to stand on its own 2 feet as well. Okay, so that's something that I think would contribute to that success, but also just me taking it one step at a time, figuring it out as we go. I'm becoming more and more resilient all the time, because you have to be, like, entrepreneurship is like boot camp of the soul. It is just so taxing. Like, oh man, when it rains, it pours. But that's, I guess, anybody's job or anyone in their life. But like, you have to get back up the next day and keep going. That's just all there is to it. So the lessons I'm learning, the resilience, the taking it one step at a time, I think that would help lead to success of this company as well.
It's amazing. And before I let you go, you talked about having an excellent product. So for the listener, a lot of our listeners love to support small business. So why don't you give us kind of a debrief on what your products are? And also, if we were to buy like 1 or 2 or 3 items off your website, tell us exactly what we need to order.
Perfect. So it is all raw, organic, infused honey, all from my family's farm. And I cream the honey, which makes it a really beautiful, smooth texture.
And then I creamed honey.
It is, so delicious. I only use whole, real ingredients, like vanilla beans, for example, or real lemon zest. I'm not using any shortcut ingredients like extracts or oils or anything like that.
Yeah.
And what is also very unique about it is, like, kind of creative flavors. Like, I have a creme brulee flavor that is probably my most popular. So if you're going to get one, I would go creme brulee, but also orange grove is my favorite. That's just 3 types of orange zest in the honey, depending on what's in season. I have really good seasonal flavors coming up. It's in limbo. I'm doing literally a poll on my Instagram stories right now about what people want to see, but it's going to be like creamy chai or apple pie, or gingerbread, like really delicious things. So yeah, just a little bit of a fancy twist of honey to really elevate it to the next level. And it's super delicious. You can use it all the places you use normal honey, like in your tea or on your toast, but also in smoothies or yogurt and granola, or I put it over salmon, or all sorts of ways. I got a ton of recipes on my page as well. But as like a simple syrup base for your cocktails, there's a lot of uses of honey. So if you're listening to this and you'd love to try, that would make me very happy. Chandlerhoney.ca, or I have chandlerhoney.com as well. And Instagram is chandler.honey.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll link all of that in the show notes and encourage everyone to go check it out. And I cannot wait to make an infused cocktail or to be putting it all over my toast. So
one last plug is I have like really beautiful gift boxes for the holiday season coming up. So if someone's really hard to shop for, food is a great gift because it doesn't clutter up their shelves forever. Yes. And this is a really unique, local, delightful food gift. So it's a really good gift for somebody who's hard to shop for. So take a look at my seasonal stuff coming out.
The truth. Yeah. Like, consumables are the best gifts, no matter what occasion you are shopping for. Or for a lot of our listeners, they do client gifts. Get them a consumable. Honey is perfect because everybody uses it. So
totally.
Amazing. Well, Tique, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy, busy schedule. We know you wear a lot of hats and we really appreciate you and wish you all of the best on this journey as you grow Chandler Honey.
Great. Thanks, Kelsey. This was a blast. Thank you.